Karlo with ESPN LA, always happy to be joined by Dr. Alan Beyer of the Hoag Orthopedic Institute. Dr. B, this is our first time chatting in 2025, the new year. I know it's been a challenging 2025 for many, but how's your new year so far?
Well, fortunately, down where I am, the calamity up north of Pacific Palisades didn't really affect us much except for the air quality, which we'll talk a little bit about. But it's just hard to get one's mind wrapped around it. It's such a big thing of sports and missing a 4-foot putt and all those kinds of things that you normally care about kind of have shrunk into the background now because this is just so much bigger than any of those things.
Absolutely. Sports provides as a great escape at a time, especially for Los Angeles, that is really in mourning and in suffering with the fires all across SoCal. We'd be remiss not to mention, take a moment to show some gratitude to our firefighters and first responders that have really proven to be LA's heroes at this time. And to all our fans, to our viewers on the road to recovery, we hope you are all safe and stay safe and are able to help Los Angeles be rebuilt stronger than ever.
It's going to take a while, but that's what we all hope happens.
Absolutely. And we at ESPN LA and you, Dr. Beyer, at the Hoag Orthopedic Institute, of course, we stand behind the city of Los Angeles on their road to recovery as we bounce back. But I do want to kind of mention or want to touch on what you mentioned, Dr. B, about air quality. I know that's something that maybe we talk about during the fires in the fall, and we have mentioned it before during the hotter weather here in Los Angeles. But this is January, a time that a lot of people are going into New Year's resolutions, maybe running outside, maybe training for the LA Marathon. We'll talk about more resolutions in a second. But air quality, what do we got to keep in mind when we're working out outside or at least being active outside?
I think even if you're not in very, very close proximity to where the various fires occurred, that ash and residue gets carried by the winds very, very far distances. I mean, those of us down in Orange County where I live see it on our cars and in our swimming pools. You see the dirt. And if you can see it on your car and in your swimming pool, that means it's in the air with every breath you take as well. So even though you might be a significant distance away from the actual spot where the fires were, I think one has to be cognizant of air quality. The other thing that makes this a little bit unique is homes these days are not just built out of wood anymore. Homes are built out of plastics and petroleum products, and all kinds of chemicals are present when these things combust. And the air is much more dangerous. It's kind of like almost as dangerous as the debris was after 9/11. You know, you're not just dealing with burned up homes that were made out of wood. And I think people have to be very cognizant of that too if they go anywhere near where the fires were, or even thinking about what you're breathing in with every breath you take a significant distance away from the fires. So try to limit the outdoor stuff. If you feel yourself getting a little bit wheezy or lightheaded or short of breath, by all means go inside. If that persists, by all means consult with your doctor because it's not something to be taken lightly.
Dr. Beyer, to that point, and even looking ahead, we've never seen a calamity at this level of fires here in Los Angeles. When would you estimate the air quality to clear up and be closer to normal?
That's all going to depend on the wind direction and when this stuff just blows away. But even when the debris is still left, the debris field is still going to be a toxic area for people to work in. I mean, ultimately, they have to go in and clear that debris. And that's going to be a toxic area to be working in. And I think that the workers who do it, whether they're homeowners or people who are hired or whatever, are going to have to take more care than the 9/11 workers took in terms of wearing appropriate, protective garments and masks and rebreathers and things like that, and not just be going out there sifting through the rubble looking for what's left of your house. You've got to take the appropriate precautions.
I guess the one positive that we've learned even from the COVID era is learning and being comfortable with wearing N95s, which would be beneficial in a scenario like this.
Absolutely correct.
Uh, let's shift gears here now, Doc. We're talking about this is our first episode of 2025, and the new year always marks a time to say new year, new me, and many people, including my friends, are looking for New Year's resolutions. I looked up a study and saw that more than 45% of New Year's resolutions focus on health, fitness, and losing weight, exercising. Um, when you see that, Doc, aren't you worried that sometimes these people who aren't active are all of a sudden getting active and maybe more prone to injuries?
So it's funny. I don't worry about that because studies also show that by the second Friday in the new year, which is called Quitter's Day, more than 50% of the people who've made a New Year's resolution have already broken it. So I
Already?
think that to make an already. So I think that to make a resolution just because it's an artificial thing like a day on the calendar and say, this is the day I'm going to do it, is a false motivation. I think that one can be just as um, sincere and really sticking to it if they make that same pledge to themselves and their own health in the middle of March or in the middle of August. Why pick January 1st as being this artificial date that this is going to happen? I think that it really requires a lot of self-reflection and introspection and inner strength to stick to doing something like this, whether you do it on January 1 or any other date. And it's got to be not just, I'm not going to drink, or I'm not going to smoke, or I'm not going to do that. It's got to be an all-encompassing thing about, I'm going to worry about my health for the future and everything that that involves. The interesting thing that I've noticed is since the election and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. getting a lot of press about how we eat and the unhealth of America because of food industry and additives and things like that. As a matter of fact, red dye number 3 just yesterday was banned. It's been in our food supply forever. It gives the red color to maraschino cherries. It's going to be 2 years until the manufacturers have to get this out of their products. But at least it's a start. And I think if industry and government and health agencies and everybody else are making this new push towards a healthy America, I think that's a good time for us as Americans to do the same thing. But it's got to involve everything: food, exercise, lifestyle, everything, not just, well, I'm going to cut out the booze and that's going to make the difference. It's got to really, if it's going to work and it's going to last, it's got to be the whole caboodle.
Oh, maraschino cherries. Well, you crushed my heart because I love having those as my Shirley Temples, Doc. You talk about uh, even drinking. Well, one of our on-air hosts, Travis Rogers, he's committing to a dry January, and he had a great 2024, dropping so much weight just by making regular morning walks, regular afternoon walks, just small changes. Now, dry January, that's a common New Year's resolution too, especially for people who really love to enjoy the holidays. What is a piece of advice you have to those who, again, would like to continue doing that towards the rest of the year?
I think the key to sticking to anything is making it achievable, not making it a Mount Everest to climb. Just make it a hill in the backyard. So dry January works for a lot of people because it has an end date. It has an expiration date. So they know I only got to do this till the 31st. So I think if you make it that far and don't want to commit to the rest of the year being dry, you could do something like, okay, Monday to Thursday, I'm not going to have any alcohol, and on the weekend I will. Go in baby steps. Make it so it's not so dire and just so restrictive to you that at some point you're just going to throw in the towel and quit it. If you're out with your buddies on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, let's say Monday night watching the college football championship, It's easy to avoid drinking that one night. When the weekend comes, you can have a cocktail or two or a beer or two or whatever. So I think that the key is setting goals that are not just so constrictive that you're going to have to give up because nobody could do it. Do baby steps and modify it so that it becomes palatable. And I think that you've got a lot higher chance of success with something like that.
I think I'm speaking for a lot of our Road to Recovery fans that we really appreciate that advice of having more reachable, achievable goals and rather than be intimidated by anything of some sort of ultimatum. So we like having that leeway, Doc. Appreciate that very much, and we appreciate you as always joining us on the Road to Recovery presented by the Hoag Orthopedic Institute. Doc, I'm curious, what is the Hoag Orthopedic Institute or even AM 830 doing for our fire victims here in Southern California?
Well, actually, believe it or not, we're actually seeing a lot of people who are displaced by the fires in Palisades, especially coming down to Orange County because a the demographic is very very similar to the Palisades, but more important than that, there are a lot of schools that burned down. I think last I saw was 8 or 9 schools that were burned down. And if you're a young family and you have kids in school, you want to get your kids back into school as quick as you can. And if the schools are burned down, sure, LA Unified says we'll put them in school somewhere, but that might be busing them or you driving them to a school that's an hour away every day, 2 directions. So a lot of people are actually looking to at least temporarily relocate to Orange County because there are some really solid school districts down here, Newport Mesa, Irvine, and others. And that way they can rent a house or even purchase a house if they're so equipped financially and get their kids into school right away. That's got to be the number one thing. It's going to take you 2 to 3 years to rebuild your house back up there. Make a plan that at least isn't going to impact your family on the go forward with a long-term deleterious effect, i.e., your kid not being in school. So I think that a lot of people are looking towards the OC for that.
I know it's a sad alternate, but I was even thinking about how many freshmen in high school had to adjust to remote learning during COVID time. And now, even now, 4 years later, they're seniors in high school and they're going once back again to remote learning, a change they probably never thought that they would have to go back to.
And I think every study has shown that remote learning doesn't hold a candle to in-person learning. So I think if anybody is able to relocate to get their kids in an appropriate school setting, that's a small sacrifice for the family to make to get the kids taken care of appropriately.
Absolutely. I agree, Doc. Doc, thank you again for joining us on the Road to Recovery presented by the Hoag Orthopedic Institute. Doc, what's coming up on Doc in the Dugout?
Well, as you know, even though baseball season's over, we still plug on, except during spring training, we miss a couple of weeks when the Angel games are at 12 noon on Saturdays out in Arizona. But this week, my guest is Jim Slotkin. Jim's a senior golfer, lives down in the La Costa area, and overcame chronic lymphocytic leukemia, or CLL, which happened a few years ago, was treated with some very innovative immunobiological treatment, got back out on the senior golf tour, won the Northern California Senior Open a couple of years ago. So he says that going through his disease process really changed his outlook on life and on golf. So he'll be a very interesting guy to talk to.
Looking forward to it, Doc. Take care.
Thanks. See you soon, Karlo, and Happy New Year again.